Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Sunday, the 22nd of February. I am off to church, as is my wont on Sundays. I should not be on the slides, but you never know the way things go. You have to be ready every Sunday. If the ball falls onto you, you just got to be ready. Of course, there's a very prominent hockey game going on, as will be in church, between the United States and Canada. Yes, I backed down and watched some Winter Olympics because I saw the U.S. men's team did well. Of course, the women won gold earlier in the week, but this I'm going to miss this big hockey game between the U.S. and Canada for gold. We're going to get our first medal, we being the United States. Of course, I am American. And we're going to get our first medal since 2010. We just don't know the color. Is it going to be gold or silver? So I thought this would be entertaining to kind of watch how the day goes. Me being at church, not being able to watch the game, but I wonder how my brethren are going to react, and if there will be a reaction if the United States wins, which I think they will. And we got a wee bit of a mist going on this morning, some light rain. We got a cold front coming through, and it's going to be back in the 30s again for this final week of February.
Well, as you just saw, the rest is history. The Americans did win the gold medal yesterday, 2-1 in overtime over Canada to win the gold medal. And oddly enough, the women won the gold medal 2-1 over Canada in overtime a few days prior in a different game. But to me, this was a great accomplishment and a very uplifting moment for our country. But I would have to say, having been alive for when it last happened in 1980, 1980 was a way bigger accomplishment. A bunch of amateurs beating the Soviet pros on their way to the gold medal. And oddly enough, now let's just think of this. There was no internet. There was just cable TV. There was no cell phones. There was no streaming services. You had to wait until ABC aired the game at 8 o'clock, and the game wasn't even aired live. It took place between 5 to 8 o'clock on a Friday late afternoon, early evening. And me having Asperger's syndrome, I tend to remember a lot more things than I think most people do. And my brain kind of works in fragments, and that's how I remember things in greater detail. And I could tell you what I was watching when the word broke that we had beaten the Soviets in the Winter Olympics of 1980. I was watching a station out of San Francisco, and our cable system in Pinellas County, Florida, in the St. Petersburg area, tried out a lot of superstations, and we all remember WOR out of New York, and WGN out of Chicago, and WTBS in Atlanta. Well, they tried other stations too, like WCIX in Miami, and for a few months in the spring of, not the spring, but early 1980, they tried KTBU out of San Francisco. I had to look that up on Wikipedia. And there was this gentleman by the name of Pat McCormick, not the comedian of the 70s who was in Smokey and the Bandit and some other things, but he was a local cartoon host in the San Francisco area. Now, there's a 3-hour time difference between Florida and San Francisco. So when he's airing Spider-Man at 4 to 5, his time, where the station was, it was 7 to 8 Eastern time in Florida, and my parents let me watch Spider-Man cartoons from the 60s. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. And he broke the word on his air, Mr. McCormick, that the Russians were beaten by the Soviet Unions about 15 minutes before the game was going to air on ABC. And you have to remember that the Iranian hostage crisis was going on. We weren't going to take part in the the Summer Olympics in Moscow in the USSR, back when there was a USSR, because the Soviets had just raided Afghanistan, and President Carter was just saying, no, not going. That's it, period. So we needed a lift in our country, and the Iranian hostage crisis was going on, and we didn't know it was going to go on for about another year. We needed a lift in our country, and the American hockey team of amateurs beat Finland next couple of days. It was a complicated process. There wasn't a final. There were 2 round-robin groups of 6. and you had to finish in the top two to advance to the medal round, and you played the two teams from your other group, and the game that you played with the other finalists from your group counted. It was very complicated. So they could have beaten the Russians, and if they lost to Finland, they still could have possibly wound up without a medal. But they wound up winning against Finland 4-2, and they won the gold Sunday morning, which was February 24th, 1980. And oddly enough, we win the gold medal February 22nd, 2026, and we beat the Soviets February 22nd, 1980. So it was 46 years to the day that happened. And now, nearly half a century later, America needed another lift. We've been kind of picked on under the current president. And our people, our friends to the north used to be our friends, now not so much, and we wound up beating the team that invented hockey, the Canadians, or the country that invented hockey, to win the gold medal. So I'll have a little more detail as we go into the weekend. I went to church yesterday, and I'm again going to have to Uber in come March 1st, next Sunday, and I'll talk about more of that next weekend. Bye bye for now, everybody.